Welcome to Bible Quiz. Bible Quiz in the Jesus Parables. Difficulty levels hard. Good luck to you. In which parable does Jesus speak about a house built on sand? Which parable explains why Jesus spoke in parables? How many types of soil are mentioned in the parable of the sower? Which parable ends with the words, "Many are called, but few are chosen"? Which parable answers the question, "Who is my neighbor?" In which parable is a fig tree that bears no fruit mentioned? Who refused to enter the celebration in the parable of the Prodigal Son? Which parable features a manager praised for his shrewdness? Subscribe and like so you don't miss new videos. Which parable begins with the words, "The kingdom of heaven is like"? How many servants received talents in the parable of the talents? Who was justified in the parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector? Which parable mentions a pearl of great value? Which parable compares the kingdom of God to yeast? In which parable did workers receive the same pay despite working different hours? Which parable was directed at those confident in their own righteousness? Who forgave a great debt in the parable of the unmerciful servant? Which parable ends with being cast into outer darkness? Which parable features 10 virgins? How many virgins were foolish? Which parable describes the separation of sheep and goats? Which parable speaks of seed growing by itself? In which parable is a rich man called foolish? Which parable was told in response to the complaints of the Pharisees? Which parable features a judge who neither feared God nor cared about people? Which parable includes the image of a fishing net? What is the main theme of most of Jesus' parables?